Lucky Lefty, that's Onora Boys in the building, brought to you by Onora Whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. It is that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhiskey.com. And if you drink, by all means, you have to make sure that you do it
responsibly.
We had to take it to the South today, Left. Apropos, right? We had to take it to the South today. Lucky Lefty Podcast, Onora Boys. MALIK, ZAIRE, SHAUN Davis. Brought to you by Onora Whiskey. You already know what it is. Happy Thursday to everybody. We know the big news is out there. We're going to get to it. I'm going to give you a little background, some things that were said to myself this weekend. Moving forward. Quarterback position, what's going to happen? From what I'm hearing, there are 2 or 3 guys Notre Dame will be looking at moving forward in the 25 class.
Wait. Why are we looking forward to the 25 class? What
just
happened?
Just numbers. Because Left, you have to anticipate one quarterback might transfer. You have to anticipate that. So are you really going to go into the next season with only 3 guys at the quarterback position?
Well, the way we do it, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing because if anything, we like to just use one guy and not even rotate. So I don't even know how.
I'm gonna let you loose. I'm gonna let you loose in a minute, love. I'm gonna let you loose, and we might have some special guests today to talk about this situation because I'm gonna tell you something. The former Notre Dame players, boy, that text thread last night, man, on both ends of the spectrum, very heated. Very heated. So that players only, they want a special players only podcast. We're going to post, it's off week, so we're posting players only today instead of Wednesday. They recorded late Tuesday. Now they're requesting another players only podcast to talk further about what just transpired. Some very interesting things. So look forward to coming back to back players only lounge podcast over at patreon.com/Lucky Lefty Network. You need to go over there and subscribe today. Apple Podcast, Spotify, CFB Nation, TikTok, Twitter, X, Instagram at Lucky Lefty Pod. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up. We respond to all comments and questions. It's a Lucky Lefty Podcast. We are the home of the misguided passion, and we're forever committed to making sure that you and we spin it
different. Come on.
All right. So last night news broke. I was told earlier in the day it was going to break around 6:30 Central Time. I pretty much knew it was a wrap Monday night when I saw the IG post with the photo shoot. And Ryan Roberts really did a great job this summer, at the tail end of this summer, kind of to certain things on the message board over at Irish Breakdown, things that were happening. So I'll give my background. A longtime member of my church is Deuce Knight's great aunt. She literally, now I didn't know this initially. I found this out this summer when she and the family suffered 2 tragic deaths in the family in the month of June. She traveled down and she saw a video on Facebook from our interview. And she texted me and said, yo, you interviewed my nephew, Deuce. Yo, imagine my face when she sends me a text and she's in Mississippi. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we interviewed him. And she sends me a picture standing next to Deuce and his dad while she was down there. So it was funny because when I got the picture, I'm like, all right, cool. But fast forward. So
this is first nephew, or what do you call that? Yeah.
No, his grandma. She is the sister to his grandmother.
She is the sister to his grandmother. Okay.
His grandmother's sister.
Okay. Yeah.
So his great aunt.
That's great aunt. Yeah.
It's great aunt.
It always be confusing me how they,
Right. So that was like, remember he got injured, right?
Yeah.
Remember he got injured. Everybody was speculating what's wrong. Yo, I reached out. His mom sent word back. It was just a hamstring. He's good. And that's why I spoke about it on the show.
Yeah.
Like,
hydrate, young fella. Hydrate, man. Soft tissue injuries is an athlete thing, not a football.
So move forward from that. This Sunday, I'm literally fresh out the pulpit. The great aunt comes to me and says,
you must have delivered a word that day.
It was pretty good. It was about the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
And how you need to pursue happiness. It just doesn't come to you. It's pretty good. It's up on our Facebook page, Chicagoland Christian Center. Go check it out.
Go check it out.
I'm fresh out the pulpit, and she says, my sister's been talking about some other school. So, I mean, I already know the other school, so I'm laughing. I'm like, oh, yeah? She's like, yeah. So we talk, and she says, can you talk to his dad? And,
okay.
I was like, look, I don't have anything to do with that. That's their decision. Whatever is the case.
Okay.
Right? But I'm like, hey, it is what it is. So here comes a call from a Mississippi area code. Right? Literally in the first few 30 seconds, I knew it was a wrap.
That's real fast.
That's
quick.
Someone very, very close to Deuce. The closest you can get to Deuce. I'll put it that way. Literally said to me, Deuce hasn't decided where he's going to go to school. I was like, okay, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. We can end the speculation. It's a wrap. But then this is where the trickiness comes in. Because I already knew, we had already heard everything. Heck, he's been to Auburn the last 5 weeks. So it's like, it is what it is.
I mean, it's only, you only been there.
This is when people try to throw you off the trail. Right? I'm told Ole Miss is the team to watch.
Not the look over here.
Right.
Not to look over here.
I'm literally told, like, don't look over here anymore. The real team to watch is over here.
It's over here. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. And yeah,
you're not drinking the Kool-Aid though. You saw through it.
It was just real inconspicuous. And then it was like, yeah, we're coming for Stanford. And I'm like, all right, but dude, the first you had, I'm done. So immediately I get off the phone, I start sharing it with my guys, like, yo, this is what I heard.
Yeah, this is what's on. This is what
was said. Like,
not what I made up, not speculation. This is what was brought.
Literally, I didn't go looking for this information. This information found me.
Yeah.
I didn't go looking for it. It found me.
I didn't call myself now.
No.
The area code came Mississippi. That they
It found me. And so I just want to point out, man, like, I don't have a problem with anybody deciding what they want to decide, bro.
Oh.
But there is no reason in the current landscape of high school recruiting to be deceitful. It's for
no
what?
Reason. No reason.
For what? Like literally with the NIL landscape, the open visits, the extra visits,
open borders,
paid visits, everything. There's no reason to be deceitful and to distract.
What you say? 2024, all lies will be revealed.
No reason for it. And that is the only disappointing thing to me personally about.
Just tell us what it is.
That's the only disappointing thing to me personally about this entire thing. Dude. It's like you're operating and moving in a way that is unnecessary, man. And I can't throw as much vitriol as I did to Peyton Bowen and then hold off on Deuce Knight. I can't. Young man, no. And it's very nuanced because you're dealing with people that are surrounded by people that might be pushing this agenda, that might have influenced the ultimate decision. But at the end of the day, young man, this is going to be a lesson. It doesn't matter who's surrounding you. It's going to be laid at your feet. It's your decision. I don't care who's in the background. I don't care who's in the background, who's surrounding you. It's your decision, bro. It's your decision. So the thousands of followers you lost, and from the reaction, look, forget what I think. Forget what Left is about to tell you what he thinks. Forget what he thinks. The reaction, the immediate reaction of the rest of the 2025 Notre Dame recruits tells you everything you need to know. The immediate reaction of posting of their pictures. The immediate reaction of Noah Grubbs, and he's not even in the class.
Yeah, Noah Grubbs took a family photo, said, "We ready."
He said, "We stand on business." Dude, let's every young man, everybody, dude, it is what it is, man.
It's cool.
It is what it is. No one's mad at your decision. Your decision is your decision. It's yours. And I don't agree with people calling him out his name. I don't agree with people feeling like all of a sudden they know his destiny. That young man owns his destiny and what happens. But the way you handled this situation, young man, as a dad, as a parent and a mentor to young people, I'm going to step away from the young man for a second and say I'm disappointed in the surroundings. I'll just leave it at that. Very disappointed in the surroundings. Because it ain't got nothing, has nothing to do with the decision, Left. Has everything to do with the operation. See, because I tell people all the time, my father was a man of God. But my father would have been all about that NIL money. He'd have been all about it. Oh, he was going to make sure, we're going to get fair value in this landscape.
Fair value. We're going to get fair value.
But you know what you're going to do?
Call them coaches and say,
you're going to tell that coach the truth.
But he wouldn't have let you not commit, though.
No. We're not dragging this out.
The
moment you start having doubt, call that man and tell him you having doubt. Right now. Call him.
Because why'd you commit? Yeah,
we're not going to do. You're going to tell this man one thing and you sitting up here visiting the school for 5 consecutive games. Stop playing in this man's face. Stop playing in this school's face. Stop. And it's the surroundings that approved that. It's the surroundings that made it seem like that was cool to do. That is my only issue. That and the fact that you got to carry this, young man. You have to carry this. And it won't matter because you're gonna put on the helmet and you're gonna go out there and play, and no one determines your fate other than you. Doesn't change the fact that I think he's getting to the NFL, not one bit. I don't care what helmet he put on. He can put on a helmet in any school in this country. I think he's still an NFL talent at quarterback. Period. But so now the nastiness from fans, good luck So being 5-5 for the rest of your career, you definitely ain't making it to the. Like, you don't decide that, man. You don't decide that. You don't decide that. Say what you have to say, and then let it go. Move on. We didn't have a quarterback late in the game and ended up with Kenny Minchie. And now the dude might be our starting quarterback moving forward. It is what it is. It is. But we're going to get into some deeper conversations. And that a lot of people, remember we had Quincy Avery on our show? And Quincy Avery was like, yo, next to Juju, it's the most talented quarterback I've seen in that class. He was like, I hope Notre Dame can keep him. And he gave the reasons why. And everybody jumped down his neck when he was just speaking of reality. You know? So that's why I sit with it. It's a lot of deceit, unnecessary deceit, a lot of unnecessary actions, a lack of honesty, a lack of transparency. And ultimately, the young man has to eat that. He has to eat that. And I would hope, I have not heard, I would hope before he dropped that image, I would hope that he gave Notre Dame a call. That would be my hope at minimum. At minimum, he called and said, this is what's going on. But I've taken up 17 minutes left. That's my take, bro.
No, keep going.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Because we'll get into the other part moving forward, what this means, how Notre Dame recovers in the 25 class. But man, yo, if you had seen the Notre Dame 25 recruits and 26 recruits in the comments under that photo shoot he posted on Instagram, it tells you everything you need to know of what they think about him right now. Because obviously, talk to Jadon Blair, before he visited last weekend. Jadon Blair has been in contact with him the whole time. I'm pretty sure he was feeding Jadon Blair BS. At this point, I pretty much feel like, yeah, he was feeding Jadon Blair and the crew bull crap the whole time. Yep. You know? But I don't do because I don't get upset with decisions, bro. I'm just at that point in life, dude. Like, yo, you have the right to do whatever you want to. I can't tell you what's best for you. I would never try to say what's best for anybody. But when you're deceitful in the way and not integral in the way you move, and you play in somebody's face, Left, you know how it is, bro. Right? When you can actually be dating somebody and get to the end of the rope and just don't know how to let go, you drag it along, and then that person ends up seeing you with somebody else. It's almost like, dude, I swear I feel like Notre Dame was on an episode of Cheaters yesterday.
That's what it probably felt like.
You know what I mean? And they walked in with Joey Greco, and this cat Deuce is sitting there eating and smoking a cigar with Hugh Freeze. Like, this are we on? This is what we're doing? Oh, you could have told me this months ago and been on your merry way. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. It's so for that, you see, I got my integrity. My integrity was poured into me, bro. My integrity was from watching a man walk in integrity. So when I see things based upon integrity lacking, that's where my mind immediately goes to. I'm sorry. I know the young man has to eat it. And like I said, I'm gonna give it to him just like I gave it to Peyton Bowen. Like, bro, that's not it. And moving forward, if you want to be successful in life, you need to change that immediately. That has to change immediately. Just take it, man. Just a word of wisdom. You're not going to get anywhere in life playing in the faces of people like that. It's not going to happen. It's not. And then, Left, I have to ask you. Did Notre Dame make a mistake? Just not saying, all right, no, go do you. After the second visit, Auburn, or even after the third visit, like, you know what? Go ahead. Bounce. We don't even have to make it public. Just go ahead. We on to the next one. We're on to the next one. We're on to the next one.
This is it's an interesting situation because it's about people who are trying to place blame on one side or the other, you know. And I think the state of where recruiting is these days changes that dynamic of blame in a sense. Everybody's accountable in some way, yes, but I do believe that the decision to decommit from Notre Dame plays a factor in what Notre Dame did themselves. I think when you're recruiting at a high level, quarterback position specifically, right? The problem that I've always had was you recruit a kid a year out or you recruit a kid before he comes to Notre Dame, he's looking at what he's coming into. And for what he was looking at, how much can you blame his indecision as a 17, 18-year-old kid? We still talking about kids. You know, that frontal lobe thing doesn't develop till what, 25 or something like that. So a lot of instant gratification comes in, a lot of emotional decisions can take place, a lot of short-sighted decisions can happen. But I do think that the bigger responsibility outside of his parents is the school he committed to. Did Notre Dame hold their end of the bargain up in his recruitment? Or did we sell him a bag of goods? Did we sell him more hope than the real thing? Or what was we doing to retain Deuce Knight? What were we doing to show Deuce Knight that this is the place for him outside of all the talking? Which recruiting is a lot of talking. Outside of all the talking, what did Notre Dame do?
I see where you're going. Oh, I see where you're going. Let me sit there. I wish I had some popcorn. Go
To
ahead,
set the
Left. I see
stage.
where you're going. I see where you're headed. I see where you're headed with this.
Because
I see where you're headed.
We are quick to say, oh, absolve Notre Dame of all of this. Because they gave you the offer, you know. But I know places where kids are committing as soon as they get the offer because they know what they're going into. And you look at recruits a lot and they talk about why they go to a school. Oh, I go to a school maybe because it's NIL. I go to a school maybe because it's the coach there, maybe because I can see a future. I got a role there. It's carved out. I can see the pathway to success. If I'm Deuce Knight, I'm looking at this pathway to success at Notre Dame looks a little murky. It looks a little murky. Because my thing is, okay, Notre Dame's a home run shot. Theoretically.
Cats don't want to. The cats don't want to hear the truth about their team. They don't want to hear the truth about their program. A dude that actually played for the program, they don't want to hear the truth. That's why I love society today, boy. It's either you got to make me feel good and rub my back, but when it comes to like hearing the harsh truth about situations, because it's not all about jumping on Deuce today. That's what truth does.
That's what truth does.
Things that you might not want to hear.
They don't. It sounds like they don't want to hear it today. It sounds like they don't want to hear it.
Maybe everybody else will just rub you back. It's fans to say it's gonna be okay.
Woe is Notre Dame. I don't know if we could just do woe is Notre Dame.
Some things to talk about today.
I don't know if we could just do
about today.
Woe is Notre Dame. I don't know if we could just place all the blame on one side and not have some responsibility on the other. We know it's 2024. We know the retention factor is at a higher level to keep recruits than it's ever been, which means guys got to 24/7 be on this job. And yeah, we could talk about what's right with Notre Dame, but there's a lot of things that wasn't right with Notre Dame. And you got to think these are how 16, 17, 18-year-olds are looking at a situation. Because if I was 16, 17, looking at this QB situation, looking at this offense, looking at all the things that were glitz and glamour, I wouldn't feel confident going into this situation. And I'm sure there was.
Can I be Hugh Freeze for a second? I'd see everybody. I'm gonna just say this for a second. I'm Hugh Freeze for a second. It's real simple for me. Notre Dame fans don't want to hear this. Tell me the last quarterback you placed in the first round of the NFL draft in Notre Dame history. Tell me. I'm Hugh Freeze. Tell me. Hey, son, how have they handled the last two? How have they handled and developed the last two transfer quarterbacks they had?
How they handled the last 4, 5, 6?
How they handle that? How they handle Malik Zaire and Deshaun Kaiser? How did they handle, dude? What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
What are we talking about? We're gonna sit up here and really act like there is a history of quarterback development at Notre Dame that other schools cannot use. You're going after a kid from the South, which means you have to have other things other than the Southern culture to get him to stay in the class and ultimately commit.
What Quincy say? He said
Quincy said it in Notre Dame fans jumped on his neck. They jumped on his neck because he spoke the truth. When was the last time Notre Dame pulled a top prospect from a public school in the South? Name them. Name them. Last time they got a 5-star from a public school in the South, and ask yourself, why has it been so hard? Why?
Quarterback.
Why? Has nothing to do with color, racism, all that other stuff that people want to try to throw in to just be silly about it. Culture. What they need. We had a sophomore from Notre Dame that came from the inner city on this podcast just over a week ago that flat out said, I stepped into an atmosphere that is full of people that come from a different culture that I come from, and majority of them come from money, and I had to find my way. I went into depression because it's tough. Notre Dame is different. We constantly brag about Notre Dame being different, but want to ignore how that plays out in multiple other ways.
How it plays out in the guy's decision.
Absolutely.
And even if it's not culture, because I know that's a sensitive thing for
you
people.
Have to. He is a young man like Deuce Knight had to be. If you were going to get him and keep him, you literally have to do everything. You have to do the most. His
whole thing was Marcus Freeman. He didn't talk much about the school being the biggest deciding factor. He said Marcus Freeman was my guy.
Marcus Freeman is the only reason that it went this long.
It had nothing to do with the school, the culture, the history. He told you out his mouth, Marcus Freeman is the reason why. He felt like family.
Another part of the conversation that I spoke about from this weekend, literally, this was said, we just want Deuce to make it to the NFL. That's a little short-sighted from my point of view. It's short-sighted, but I'm like, yo, if that's your main concern,
We can even switch.
It is what it is.
We can switch positions and talk about a receiver we lost a couple years ago. That told you, it was out Notre Dame every day, every weekend, and said, "Man, I love this."
We can say if we do not take this opportunity to self-examine what is taking place, because it's not just good enough to say, okay, we got Kenny and CJ. If you operate the same way, I'm going to say it again. If you take this into fall camp, splitting reps without making a decision on who the guy is, we're going to have the same issue moving forward with Kenny and CJ. The exact same issue.
Come in and play day one.
Yes. The exact same issue.
Even if we love CJ and Kenny, they're shelved. They haven't got no opportunity to play in the first season they got there. That's a factor. Cardinal told you himself. He said, yeah, as much as I love everything about Notre Dame, I look in that receiver room and don't see nothing that I see in Ohio State's room. Ohio State's room pumping out guys like it's McDonald's burgers. I look at the Notre Dame room, I can't find anything that can resemble me being in that room and getting to the next level. How many receiver coaches we done went through? How many guys have been in there and we talk about Charlie Jones every day? Can't get no production. That's not setting no good standard. And you can't blame me for saying it. You can't blame me. Because look at what he's looking at. He don't see no Garrett Wilsons or Chris Olaves or Jeremiah Smith. He sees a bunch of guys that he's like, well, they've been there for that long, and what's the result? What's the result? That's why I'm going to Ohio State. Not because I don't love Notre Dame and the culture, and my parents love it, and I've been there all the time, and everybody's great and hunky-dory. When I had to make the split decision of what's going to get me to the league, what's going to get me to the next level, how can I have the confidence when I look in that receiver room and can't identify anybody? Justice Scott said the same thing. Justice Scott told you, he said, man, I've looked to my left and right. I'm like, I'm the best one in the room. How? So if we're lying and relying on the whole culture aspect, it's not meant for everybody. It's a special place. Not everybody gets a chance to go. Cool.
And that's cool.
But what about on the field? What about the other side? What about showing on the field you scoring 40 points a game? Deuce told you when Denbrock came, he said, it's a new life. I'm refreshed. I see what Denbrock is going to bring to Notre Dame. Because I just saw from LSU, when he got the interviews about Denbrock coming, he said, oh, this is great. I just seen what Denbrock did with a Heisman guy and 2 first-round receivers at LSU. I'm excited to be under that. I'm excited to go there and experience that.
Part of that was cap, though. Part of that was cap. Because by that time, his relationship was building with Cam Newton on the circuit this summer. And that's another thing. I mean, when you have a championship quarterback, a Heisman winner, and a Rookie of the Year, and an NFL MVP walking in the building that wears the same number that you wore, and gives you the blessing to wear his number he wore Auburn. Those are the types of things that influence 17-year-olds. What are we talking about? What 17-year-old wouldn't get starry-eyed over that?
We not talking about good old 29, good old 29 thinking different. But that frontal lobe with the short-sighted success and all the glitz and glamour, that's gonna be there. We can't compete with that part. And then you look on the field and see what we over there talking about we got full confidence in. And then we look over there and see a guy that we bringing in that's not producing the same that we talked about and gloated about. What's the pulling piece?
You know how old I am. Cam Newton would have influenced me right now. I'd have like, yo, that's Cam.
That's Cam Newton.
That's Cam, dog.
As a 17-year-old, that weighs more than a 4 for 40. I can't. Dude's not thinking 4 for 40.
No, he's not. It takes the people around him. Derek Curry. I got Derek Curry. That's on the Players Only podcast with us. Said he didn't want to come to Notre Dame at all. He said the only reason he showed up is because his dad said, son, that's the best place for you for the rest of your life. Which is why I immediately go to the surrounding when it comes to the integral part of this conversation, bro. Because 17, if you don't have it around you, man, there are some people that have old souls, have had to grow up quick, that do have wisdom at that point. God bless them. The vast majority of 17-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old boys, they don't have it. They don't. Which is why even the best high school players show up on campus and they're immature and the coaches have to get them to grow up so they can finally start practicing well, developing well, and are finally getting on the field. It's a process. Look, man, let me tell you something. It is a problem. It is a problem that goes back to Brian Kelly. It is a problem. I'll say this. Lou Holtz, one of Lou Holtz's biggest weaknesses was talent evaluation at the quarterback. I'm going to keep it a buck, bro. Ron, let me stop, because certain people work for Notre Dame. There's certain quarterbacks that was supposed to be Mr. Everything and didn't pan out. Just didn't pan out. Even going Notre Dame almost won in spite of flaws at the quarterback position under Lou Holtz. Like the quarterback position for a long time has not. Every once in a while we get a Brady Quinn. Every once in a while we get a Jimmy Clausen. But consistently, no, that position. And we need to wake up as a fan base and understand. Our boy from Fox Sports came on the podcast. He said Notre Dame is a big-time quarterback. Literally, he said a big-time quarterback and a big-time wide receiver from competing as a national champ for a national championship. He said it's that simple. He said it's that simple. They get a big-time wide receiver and a big-time quarterback, Notre Dame will compete for a national champion. So we have to honestly ask ourselves, why hasn't it happened? Why? Why? Let's really wake up. Why hasn't it happened? Because we've had guys recruited that were 4 stars. Like, why has this not taken place? Why? You spoke eloquently the other day, Left, about how hurtful the situation, and we're not here to debate the rules, the academic standings and requirements at Notre Dame. They're in place. They are what they are, but the way the situation was handled and how Everett Golson was discarded and how that made him feel, even though they brought him back in, it was never the same. It was never the same. The way you were treated and pit against Deshaun. Even after Deshaun left, the way you were treated and they were going to pit you against Brandon. When Brandon took over and they refused to build the offense around him, Chip Long refused to build the offense around him and built it around Ian Book's gifts and abilities. No wonder Ian Book won the job. This is what Notre Dame has done. This is how they operate with their quarterbacks. And you wonder why time and time again they do the same thing to Jack Cohn with Tyler Buchner. They tried to do it. They tried to get rid of Jack Cohn and just give the job to Tyler Buchner. How did that go? Tyler Buchner was a 4-star quarterback, fringe 5-star.
There's more quarterbacks in the graveyard at Notre Dame.
So at what point do we say it's not the players? At what point do we look at the institution and how things have operated and say, if that doesn't change, it might not even matter.
It can't support a guy like Deuce Knight. There's no support for a quarterback specifically.
I can't speak to that. You can speak to that, Love.
Oh, you can see it.
I can't speak to that.
There are more quarterbacks in the Notre Dame graveyard than at Notre Dame prominence or at another stage of their career prominence. There's a big missing piece there. Because I believe all of us was talented enough to get to a certain point, to win games at Notre Dame. But there's always this disconnect. Well, it's not a disconnect with the O-line or the tight ends or the running backs or safeties of the last couple years or linebackers or even D-line. But you telling me we can recruit all of those places and can't get the quarterback position right? There's a disconnect. It's an unspoken thing going on. Because it's beyond a talent. We've had the talent. But why is the success not coming behind it? Why is there always these entrenched, in-depth competitions every year? Why is it this roadblock for guys that are very talented? We had guys leave. We got guys that aren't performing well, that keep getting another chance after chance. Why is there not the support system like we see at other schools? Why is it that Ohio State gets it right most of the time? Why is it that Clemson has gotten it right, and when they've got it wrong, they still find ways to support their guy? How does LSU get lucky and get it right with the same coaches we got? With the same coaches that we got. They go to other schools and have success with their quarterbacks. How does that happen? How do we not get that part of it right? If a quarterback was looking at any sort of history as a top prospect at the quarterback position at Notre Dame, that's a scary movie to watch over the last 12 years. A scary movie. You like, dang, they had him, and that's all they got out of that? So I just want to know what it can't all be Deuce just didn't want to come and he got swayed in a different direction. He was committed a year and a half and told you why. He said Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman don't coach no quarterbacks. Deuce didn't come and say, oh, it's because of anything else other than the head coach. And he felt like Marcus Freeman at that time did a great job of conveying the message of it'll be different. Not it'll be the same, because you can't say that. Not we see you as we get our one guy over here and had great success. So we can compare and contrast. We can show you the roadmap. What roadmap was laid out for Deuce at Notre Dame other than hey, you had Notre Dame? Seriously. What did y'all show him on the whiteboard to be like, man, we're going to do this first year, this second year. We got a plan for you. Here's players that we executed this with before that are your type of player. What's the reference? When you do a paper for school, what they say, you got to cite 3 sources. MLA format, 3 sources you got to cite. What are we citing at Notre Dame to write this Deuce Knight paper? What are we citing? What are we talking about? Not only that, Deuce is looking at what the receiver room is, and he's like, man, they got guys, but where they at? Where are they at? They try to do it with guys in-house, didn't like it. Try to do it with guys from over here, didn't like it. Over there, didn't like it. Didn't work out. What is the roadmap we showed Deuce to say this could be you and be successful? Because for Auburn, they can always hit the cam thing. They hit the cam button, and somehow the cam button overrode a year and a half of work. And you can't talk about what has Auburn done? Nothing. Auburn ain't done nothing better. But I would guarantee you they're going to show the roadmap of what they did with Cam, and Hugh Freeze wasn't even there. In fact, wasn't Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss during that time? Hugh Freeze wasn't even there. And he can press that Cam button and do way more damage than anything Notre Dame's put in for a year and a half. That's crazy. That's crazy. All because of what? You were just hoping that he would have that veil over his eyes, that mysticism of what Notre Dame can do in 40 years from now. Not 4, in 40 years, what that can do for Deuce. That's what got his parents, I'm sure. But as time got closer and closer and the decisions became tighter and tighter, his family's like, man, 40 years is great, but 4 can change our lives. 4 can change our lives. 40 is great to have. We might have to reconsider a little bit. We might have to reconsider.
I'll tell you once again, the greatest visit. I took my daughter on 4 or 5 visits. Princeton, Howard, Vanderbilt, USC. I forget the other school. We had a gentleman that told us at Vanderbilt, young lady, you can go get a great education anywhere. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself fitting? Think about the town you're going to be living in for the next 4 days. Think about the people you're going to be around for the next 4 days, 4 years. Because you can get a great education at a lot of different countries, a great quality education. So just don't get caught up on one thing. Make sure everything fits you. If for some reason we think the only place that can give you a quality education and set you up for life exists in South Bend, Indiana. That's it. That's it. That's the only place in this country where you can set yourself up for the rest of your life. There are no other athletes. Frank Thomas is okay. Charles Barkley is doing okay. Cole Kubik is doing okay. Bo Jackson is doing okay. Them the Auburn athletes that transition pretty well off the field.
There's a bunch of them.
And living okay lives.
Notre Dame isn't the only school that can do that.
Oh, stop using that, man. Stop, because that stuff comes across. That's all you have to offer. Like, that's it. That's it. 4 for 40. I'm just supposed to decide to leave the South and leave the comfort of my family being able to drive an hour to see me play. That's the only thing you got to pull me from the South? Is 4 for 40? My parents ain't thinking about that. You don't know how my parents grew up. You don't know the struggles. You don't know our situation right now. And everybody's not the same, man. They're not. That's why I could care less about the decision. The lying, the deceitfulness, and the lack of integrity is the issue here. Because in the current landscape of recruiting, is no reason to operate that way. Maybe 5 years ago, okay. Right now, yeah, dude, just tell the truth. Be blunt. Like, hey, I'm dating other people right now. Coach Freeman, yeah, man. I met this chick called Auburn. She's looking pretty good right now. I think I'm going to holler at her. I'm just letting you know. So if you see me hopping, talking to her, don't be surprised. Just tell the truth, man.
Just tell the truth.
Tell the truth, bro.
I do give that to Deuce to own.
That's it.
Give that to Deuce to own. Because this has nothing to do with the right now. This is just as a moral respect.
That's it.
This is more on character than it is him not going to Notre Dame.
On both sides. Character on both sides. That's the problem. That's the problem. Why is the quarterback position a problem again for Notre Dame? Why? And just magically, all of a sudden, you know what we're going to do to a first-time starter next year? We're going to put all the pressure, solve all of our years of quarterback issues. Kenny, CJ, you're the answer. Without realizing they got to develop. They haven't played. We have to actually watch them go through growing pains. In Marcus Freeman's 4th year, that doesn't blend with the 4th year of the regime. That doesn't blend. 4th year, you should be ready. Doesn't blend. Once again, that's the missed opportunity. That's the missed opportunity of development this year. The clock could have been started this year. This is why MALIK said you're going to get Riley Leonard. I don't have a problem with Riley Leonard. You're wasting the opportunity to change the quarterback culture at Notre Dame. You literally could have done that this year. You could have done that. You could have done. Because Deuce don't matter. Deuce doesn't matter. Even if Deuce was in the class, he does not change the narrative. You still have to prove you can develop the quarterback position. Okay, you got the talent. Show me you can build the offense around him and develop him. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it with CJ. This is it. This is it. 2027 quarterback that has been recently offered by Tennessee, Florida State, Oklahoma, USC, basically all the guys that can coach quarterbacks. All the coaches that have a history of coaching quarterbacks have offered this kid. He was at the Louisville game. Spoke to him at the Louisville game. You know what he told me? You're going to have to ask me about the offense. I have to wait and see CJ play in the offense. I can't tell you how watching the game impacted me because I don't play like that. That's not my game. Let me know when CJ takes a snap. Let me know when CJ takes a snap, and then I can tell you what my thoughts about the Notre Dame offense. That's what's out there now in recruiting when it comes to quarterbacks. There's no recruit that can watch the Notre Dame offense this year and say, okay, I see where I fit in. I see a plan for me. That's a problem. That's a problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's a huge problem. That's a problem. So, yes, we used the Deuce decommitment to move to the real problem. And if we want to ignore what the real problem, that the Deuce thing is pointing over here saying, hey, this is the real problem. This is just a symptom of the real problem. And I'll say it again. If we go into the fall once again with this big quarterback, we got a quarterback battle. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you ain't got one. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one. You don't have one. Yeah,
you have none.
You should know, right? This is my opinion, Left. This is my opinion. Right now, Notre Dame should know this is the dude next year. They should know that right now. You can observe and evaluate right now and say, this is who we're building the offense around next year. Right now. We're not going back to the portal. We're not doing that anymore. This is the guy. We're building around him, and we'll develop the other guy that comes in. That's it. That's how you win. That's how you win. That's how you win. Unfortunately, and then D-Rock Irish says, speak on Geno. I can't. I can't.
What can Geno do?
I can't speak on Geno until I see Kenny and CJ. I can't.
Geno is not training Riley Leonard. I mean, Geno is not invested into Riley Leonard where he can show you what Geno came there to do. Especially under Riley Leonard's circumstance. He couldn't even touch him his first semester because he was hurt. He was hurt. So is this an indictment on Geno getting a month and a half with a quarterback that came from wherever he came from? It's not Geno's fault. What could Geno have done? I bet you if we put Steve or Kenny or CJ, then you can see, okay, you can evaluate Geno. Because all those guys have been under Geno long enough. All those guys have gotten that experience at Notre Dame at least long enough. It's just what we had a frustration with going back to this whole transfer quarterback thing. Making bad decisions when it comes to evaluation on how to operate the quarterback room the right way. Many, many roadblocks. Many, many confusing things because you're like, we got Denbrock who had 4,500 yards, a Heisman, 2 receivers. We got Mike Brown, who's a great receiver coach, got that room active. We got the transfers at receiver that needed to boost up the morale and the talent and the competitiveness in that room. We got great recruits all around. We got an O-line that's going to be better and is stocked and has depth. We got a running back room that is consistent, that can make highlights, that can be playmakers. But why? We got tight ends with a legacy. You close your eyes and walk in the tight end room and can pull out first, second round, third round guy. Turn the lights off, just go in the room and just pick a tight end, pull him out. Okay, he's gonna be something. He's gonna be a dude. So this is a decision that I hate that we like to always place at the feet of the player. Yeah, the player has to do a better job, but we're asking a 17-year-old to have a better way of going about it. I think it's bigger than just depending on a 17-year-old's decision-making when you're running a national, historic college football program. It's easy to say the 17-year-old didn't do the right thing. But the 17-year-old not making the best decision at the time on where he wants to go to school weighs more than a program that's been around forever with the prominence that it's had forever. We're the leader of the new school for how we go and decide things and how the college football trends and the rules and the way college football should operate. We got our own system of how we go about our NIL and this independent schedule. We have a whole operation. But yet we want to say, oh, this 17-year-old didn't tell the truth. That shouldn't be able to shake up the program. That shouldn't be able.
I'll say this. I don't think it shakes up the program. I don't think it shakes up the program, Lev. What I think it does is hopefully, finally, it's like, dude, we have to develop what's in-house first before we can start attracting big time. We have to develop what's in-house.
We've said that forever. We thought this would be the year to show it. Year 3, Marcus Freeman was.
And this is the great thing about it, Lev. I'm sorry. It wasn't just. Maybe it was just 5 years ago, where people were laughing at the defensive backfield at Notre Dame and the history of defensive backs at Notre Dame. Wasn't too long ago. It was not too long ago. But that narrative has changed rather quickly, has it not? It's changed rather quickly. No one is questioning Mike Mickens and recruiting and players going to the NFL draft. Nobody's questioning it.
4 years, he changed the whole.
4 years, he flipped it.
Oh, we're saying that's the best unit on the team.
And guess who the first piece of development for Mike Mickens was?
Ben Moore.
Cam
Hart. Cam Hart.
Somebody he didn't even recruit.
Got him to what?
He took what he had and he developed it. And then he got Benjamin Morrison.
And Benjamin Morrison looked up to Cam, and he told you that.
Right?
And that changes.
That's how it works. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenny and CJ have to be developed. You want to change the narrative? Develop them. And you could have done that this year. You could have done that this year. You don't have to wait. You could have done that this year. Because what are we doing? Handing the ball off the vast majority of the time? Throwing first option pass plays? Like, the offense isn't, this is the same type of offense you would run for a first-time starter. Correct me if I'm wrong, Left. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Hand the ball off, play to your defense, don't make mistakes. Rollouts, hit the first option. That's it. That's stuff you give to a freshman, a first-time starter. If we were going to be doing this offensively, we could have done that with Kenny and Steve. We could have done that with Steve, Kenny, and Steve.
Kenny, and Steve.
We could have done that.
Got the same result.
We could have done that.
But like I said, Marcus Freeman could have had that ability to put it on the fact of, okay, we're developing guys and it's their first time and we've been working with these guys, and you can fall back on development. You can't fall back on anything with Riley. That just looks like a bad decision made, a bad recruiting mistake, a bad evaluation of where you were as a program compared to the kids that you brought in. That's bad. At least we can say with Steve, okay, Steve, we got the most out of him. This is the best version of him, and it's taking us to this point. Now we can go back and try a young guy that we're really excited about. That's how you go to those press conferences when you're doing it the right way. What are you going to say when you totally put on the back burner your quarterback room and your development and everything that you built in those 3 years to get a guy off the street? Now you got to ride with him. Now you got to say things like, I have full faith that he can do it. No, you don't. You're hoping he can do it because you sacrificed everything else to put a kid with limited time in a position to, in my mind, like I kept saying, to win a championship. Because me and you both said for the longest, getting Riley Leonard is saying to the world, oh, we're winning the whole thing. Because we already knew that the quarterbacks we had can do the same thing and had the same abilities with this team around them. It was never about the quarterback. Because we had that running game. We had a great game manager in Steve. We had great talent that was up and coming and young that we were excited to see. Great defense. This is not the situation with Sam Hartman where we needed a quarterback to win them 3 or to be a big influence in those 3. We were saying, okay, bringing Riley does what for our offense? That's the question I kept asking the whole year. What does he do for the offense that the guys that we've been developing cannot do? Because to me, it looks like the same amount of results. Except now, getting Riley, you're telling everybody we're 2 games better in the playoffs to get somewhere. What else is he giving us?
Yeah,
what else are you sacrificing?
Somebody in the chat tried to be snarky, talking about, people transfer everywhere. Once again, you're missing the boat. I guess we flew right over your head with what our conversation is. So let me try to simplify it. I don't care who you bring in. If you can't coach and develop in them, it's a failure. Somehow the defensive, Rod Hurd looks pretty good.
Rod Hurd looks great.
Coming into Mike Mickens' coaching and system.
Coming into it.
So you don't have to tell us that people transfer all the time. We know that. Once again, we ask you the question. Name us the quarterback that has been evaluated, recruited, developed, and went to the NFL for Notre Dame and been successful. Tell us the last one. We got to have our boy come in, Left.
Yeah.
Our boy Double R, as I said before, we gave him credit early in the show because he was the one that really was on this development early on. And we welcome him in, Ryan Roberts. Double R, what's good, bro?
What's up, fellas? How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good, man.
Good.
So you can go ahead and give some of the backstories. Like I said, even before you switched to your new job, once again, we haven't had the chance to say congratulations to that on here.
Yeah, congratulations, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. Yep.
But you were the one, your connections, the backstory, and how these dominoes began to fall, ultimately ended up in the decommitment to Auburn from Notre Dame and the flip to Auburn. And then you can also talk about, because I know how you feel. You and I talk on a daily basis for like the past 4 months about this. So how you feel overall about the quarterback position at Notre Dame?
Yeah, no. It's so like, obviously when I was with IB, I was covering recruiting on a daily basis, right? So like you get a little bit more inside information. But Sean, like, in our conversations, this one kind of hit me in the face a little bit when it first started happening, because like this conversation really started picking up in like late June, early July around Auburn, because before that, you remember, it was an Ole Miss frenzy, dude. It was like,
Yeah,
Deuce is flipping to Ole Miss, Deuce flipping to Ole Miss, and like honestly, never believed that. And I saw someone put in the chat earlier that it's going to be Ole Miss in the end. I doubt it, guys. Like I just seriously doubt it, because for me, Ole Miss has always been the easy choice, and Ole Miss has some money to throw around. So like if he wanted to go to Ole Miss, he would have committed to Ole Miss last year this time, right? Like, or even before Notre Dame when he committed in September last year. So I never bought the Ole Miss stuff. What I'll say is that the Auburn thing happened. I literally had a source reach out to me, and after I left our IB, I was already at A to Z Sports, and like in my new role, I'm more of like a general college football guy. I'm not as like defined to Notre Dame, but like obviously I love Notre Dame football, right? So I'm going to keep tabs on and do that type of stuff, But like this one hit me in the face, and it was like, so the first conversation I had was someone that is not close to the Notre Dame program, not even on the Notre Dame side, to be honest, right? Reached out and was like, hey, man, just so you know, Deuce and Auburn have been talking. And I'm like, okay, like that's a new one, right? Like, because at the time, I mean, obviously, like there was no traction actually there was traction for Auburn, because Auburn was always rumored to flip Juju Lewis at the time, right? And like,
yeah, they were trying for a while. And
Malik, they thought that was a done deal, dude, on the Auburn side. Like it was a done deal. It was in the books. And then there was a fall through. And I'm not going to go into the details of the fall through, but like, yes, money is involved in that conversation, obviously, like contractual obligations, all that type of stuff. Regardless, Auburn then moves on to two new quarterbacks. One is obviously Deuce Knight. The other one is KJ Lacey, that is committed to Texas, who's an Alabama kid. So like that makes sense, right? They couldn't really get a ton of traction with KJ. They got more traction with Deuce Knight. Now, the interesting thing is, and I put this in a piece yesterday at A to Z Sports, I was told, and I've gotten it verified from a couple different people. Now, there's different reports out there on this conversation, but I was told that Deuce Knight, Auburn, you would think Auburn would be the first one to reach out, but I was told that the Deuce Knight side of things was the one that reached out to Auburn first. Okay, so that obviously means at the time, Deuce isn't completely settled in his recruitment to Notre Dame. This is like June or July. He's at least looking out there, right? He's at least looking, which is, whatever. We can have a deeper conversation on that if you guys want, but like he was at least looking. Now, the next thing that happened, though, is that within the next week or so after that, it was like a done deal. I mean, completely like I had written an article about Deuce flipping to Auburn in July. Like that piece had been done in July. I thought it was it was foregone conclusion. Well, then Deuce kept pushing it back, right? He pushes it back to the end of July. Then he pushed it back to August 1st. Then August 1st came around, and then he pushes it back to August 30th. When August 31st, he was taking his first, quote unquote, visit to Auburn, right? Doesn't commit then. Then comes back to Auburn. Doesn't commit again. And then like 2 weeks ago, we're seeing a report, and it's trusted sources, that like, oh, maybe this Auburn Deuce thing isn't 100%. Like maybe Notre Dame still has a fighting chance, blah, 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 blah. I never bought it, to be honest. I'm just like, I think that this is a matter of when it happens, not if it will happen, right? Like I really, truly believe that. And obviously that did come to fruition. I will just say this, the appeal for Deuce, we could talk about the NIL stuff all we want. We could talk about, family related, all that good stuff. The big thing though, and you guys hit on part of this, was was big for him. Like, there's no doubt. I was told yesterday, and I put it in the piece, that Cam Newton literally reached out to Deuce Knight and told him it was cool for him to wear number 2, right? So like he's gotten that verified for him, and he's a Southeastern kid. He's from the state of Mississippi. He grew up knowing Cam Newton. Like, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. That is the general appeal. He's a dual threat, 6'5" quarterback from the South. Obviously, Cam Newton is going to be a guy that he will look up to in that vein. There's no doubt. The other interesting one was Jason Campbell, Auburn quarterback, former then Washington Redskin quarterback. So at first, when I heard that they had a relationship and that Jason Campbell was a part of this recruitment,
Jason Campbell too?
Yeah, man. I was like, Malik, at first I was like, huh. Like, because I'm thinking about it, right? Like, I'm about to turn 33. I remember Jason Campbell very well, right? Like, very well.
Jason Campbell,
but does 17-year-old Deuce Knight remember Jason Campbell? You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking about that. I'm just like, I don't know if he remembers Jason Campbell. Like, it's not like he was. He
definitely didn't watch him too much in college or anything. It was probably the tail end. And just that he's from the same, cloth, so to speak, 6'5",
Here's the potential relationship. Ask me where Jason Campbell's from.
Mississippi.
Probably. He's from Mississippi.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they made the nice connections.
Yeah. Nice. So you have 2 former NFL quarterbacks from Auburn that are kind of spearheading this thing a little bit, right? So everything's a part of the conversation here. My biggest thing, because I really wanted to get on here just give the backstory because it's fascinating. And I already told people in the chat and on IB message board, Sean, that if you guys want to come to the Florida State game and get me whiskeyed up a little bit, I'll tell you some more stuff that I can't say on this podcast. You know what I mean? But all that being said is I don't really care that Deuce Knight isn't coming to Notre Dame. Don't care. I'm good. If you want to come, great. If you didn't want to come, great. That is your decision ultimately, right? Same thing with Peyton Bowen. I didn't hate that Peyton Bowen ended up at Oklahoma. I hated that he lied for months and months and months. That's what I hated. I thought the process was bad. Deuce knew that he was going to go to Auburn in June or July. He knew it, just flat out. Why are you waiting until October to make a flip if you knew where you were already going to go? That's a conversation we have to have, right? If I had a choice, Deuce would have made the flip in July. And we would have been over this because now what happens is you're 2 months away from National Signing Day. And yes, Notre Dame isn't stupid. They knew that something was coming, even though Deuce didn't call them until yesterday morning that this was happening. But they knew something was coming. So have they done research on quarterbacks in the 2025 class?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There's no doubt about that, right? Yeah. But it is still not great that he waited so long because you are still technically a part of the class. So you can't push until he's out of the class.
Yeah.
And so for me, my biggest disappointment is that Deuce was not honest along the way. He was not honest for several months. He strung this along, and now you're sitting 2 months away from National Signing Day without a 2025 quarterback. And although you may have been working the back channels as much as you can while he was committed, you have an uphill battle to try to find a quarterback in the 2025 class. There's no doubt about that. This isn't a Kenny Minchie thing where
Kenny called up to school. Kenny called. He said, "Hey, y'all need somebody."
But then also you were already coming into the season knowing you needed a quarterback. So you were already doing that heavy lifting, right? They're talking to Kenny Minchie at some points. They're talking to Avery Johnson. They're talking to Aiden Childs that's at Michigan State now, right? They're working. Which
I like Aiden Childs, actually. I think he's going to be solid.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But how much do you put on Marcus Freeman knowing and having an inkling that this could be something that he's second guessing for Marcus Freeman to be to be less passive and more, okay, what are we doing? How much do you lay at the feet of being ahead of it, knowing that he's only going there because of you? Now, Marcus Freeman can do a lot, but beating out Jason Campbell and Cam Newton, that's a hard, tall tale to do. How much of Marcus Freeman do you say, okay, figure it out? Don't let this be strung out by a 17-year-old.
That's the interesting thing, Malik, is that even though there's only 2 months left, I do think he's going to figure it out, right? Because I do have confidence.
Yeah, he'll get it done.
Yeah. Here's the thing that you're hamstrung with, right? And you guys have talked about this a lot. And Sean, I know we've talked about this a ton in the past. Deuce Knight is a freak of nature talent, man. So you don't, if I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm not telling him to beat it, right? I'm not being 6'5", 4'5", rocket arm, doesn't want to come up. You're not telling him to get out of the class because this comes back to dishonesty for me, Malik, right? Is that Deuce Knight had not told the staff that he was decommitting or flipping until yesterday morning. Everybody knew it was happening, but he was not being honest about his stance and that he was having second thoughts. That's why you're hamstrung as a program. Because yes, you have a inkling and a pretty strong idea that it's coming, but until a kid's honest that he's leaving the class, what are you going to do, right? Like, because I'm not going to shoo a 5-star quarterback out of the door if he has second thoughts last minute and he decides last minute, like, oh no, actually, I do want to go to Notre Dame, right? Like, I do want to go to Notre Dame. So the staff was in a really tough spot with this one, man. Again, Deuce knew where that he wasn't coming to Notre Dame several months ago. I just wish he would have been honest about it. I just wish he would have been honest then, said, guys, Auburn's a better fit for me. I'm going to move on. And now you guys have 5 months plus to find a new quarterback and not 2 months up until National Signing Day, right? So that's my biggest fault with the Deuce Knight situation is I don't care overall that he is not going to Notre Dame. I really don't. He made a decision for himself, and that's cool. Awesome. You should have done it 3 months ago, though, because you knew you were going to do it 3 months ago. You knew it. So should have cut the cord earlier. It's very unfortunate, but Notre Dame will be fine because I've heard a couple of and I can't put these names out in the universe yet, but I've heard a couple of the names that they already have interest in. And if they get either one of those guys, no, they're not as talented as Deuce Knight, but like they're really good quarterbacks, both of them. A couple of the guys that I've heard already. So if they get one of those guys combined with Kenny, combined with CJ, like they'll be all right, man. They'll be okay. It's just
okay.
Unfortunate circumstance that this timing is laid out the way it has now.
And it's the same type of perspective of beating Ohio State last year changes the perception of Notre Dame on a large scale. Getting a guy like Deuce Knight changes the perspective of Notre Dame on a large scale. Yes, it's okay that we didn't beat Ohio State to a certain extent because some people didn't believe it could happen anyway. But does that win do more for Notre Dame in the long run, in the change perspective? Yes. Does getting a 5-star quarterback, freak of nature from the South up to Notre Dame change the perspective of our recruiting and be a cornerstone of Marcus Freeman's recruitment? Absolutely. We are, but him not getting it, like you said, is okay because we already believe Marcus Freeman is a top recruiter. But the optics, the perception, the culture is what the Ohio State game could have did for us, and is what the same as this Deuce Knight. Because now losing both of those, you go back to the narrative of, oh, it's Notre Dame. Oh, of course Notre Dame can't pull it off. Of course Notre Dame's going to lose the big game. Of course Notre Dame can't get the top guys. And then we're stuck with we're just making it work. We just putting the pieces and gathering the pieces together. We can't compete at that top tier level because of things like Deuce Knight, because of things like the Peyton Bowen. Now, it may not always be our fault, but there's a certain level of retention that we're losing in that edge of getting those 5 stars and those top quarterbacks.
Isn't it so fascinating though? Because I posted about the Deuce Knight stuff because we knew it was going to happen last night at 6:30 Central Time. We got a heads up yesterday morning that it was going to happen. Sean, I texted you yesterday morning, right, that it was finally happening, right? I was just like, yeah, it's done today, because he was supposed to decommit in July. Then he was supposed to decommit in August. Then he was supposed to decommit in the first game. Then he was supposed to decommit in the second game. Guys, he's been at Auburn 4 out of 5 weeks. Think about that, dude. He's been at Auburn 4 out of 5 weeks. That is absurd to think about. But all that being said is that it was a fascinating conversation because I posted about it. And then, of course, an LSU fan comes out of nowhere, right? And then posts like, oh, can't blame Brian Kelly now. I'm like, brother, you guys would not have had a commitment from Deuce Knight if Brian Kelly was not your head coach. But that's a different conversation for a completely different day. And then
but he did get Bryce Underwood, so it's like, dang. You did get Colin Hurley. Before. Okay, you got Jaden. Okay, Brian Kelly, you changing your perspective. You know, you knocking it out the park these last couple of years.
There's something that's changing that perspective for Stu. I don't know how much I'm going to give it to BK, but there's something changing that perspective for Stu. But I mean, like to offer your thought, Malik, I just bad optics no matter what. Luckily for the fandom in me yesterday. Dude, I was dead to this conversation. People were like trying to poke holes, like, oh, Deuce. I'm just like, guys, I came to grips with Deuce not being in this class 3 months ago, and you're trying to
months
talk to me
ago.
now about this. Like, I don't care anymore. It is what it is, you know?
Like John Massey said. John Massey said when he stopped texting me back, he knew then, and that was about 3 or 4 months ago. Sean, he was like, reach out to him, couldn't get nothing back. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what that is.
Malik, I was in the IB chat yesterday, and people were still talking about Deuce, and that was before we knew exactly when it would happen. But like, I literally put in the chat, I'm like, guys, why are we still talking about Deuce, man? Like, I don't know why we're talking about Deuce anymore. It's crazy, but I think that the big key here is that it's all going to depend on moving forward now. How do you keep these types of kids in the class? You got to show them that you can develop some of the talent that's on the roster. Like, that's the step. Like, there's no doubt
That's the only
about
step
that.
you got left.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
produce on the field. If we had Riley
Agree with
Leonard, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns a game in the Heisman, or even in the top 10 quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, well, I think it goes a little deeper than that, though, because, like, I agree with you to an extent, but, like, I think the step, though, is that, and you already mentioned it, Deuce is talking about the NFL, right? So, like, Riley Leonard could throw for 400 every week, but he still might be a second-round draft pick, right? Because, like, you know how the NFL works, man. They evaluate everything, every single thing, and he's got medical stuff. So, like, maybe you get knocked down because you have medicals, whatever. That's a completely deeper conversation. But, like, they need to see next-level success, ultimately, right? Like, LSU – Bryce Underwood's pretty easy, right? Because you're seeing Jaden Daniels maybe be the rookie of the year. Like, that's pretty easy. You're seeing Joe Burrow in the NFL, even though that's a different coaching staff. Like, that stuff speaks volumes. Now, if you can get a Kenny Minchie or a CJ Carr to be in a legit top 50 pick or first-round draft pick.
They got to play early, too, though. We got to show that we're going to play a guy early as well.
Right.
We have to play a guy going as a true freshman or as a true anything at the quarterback position, which for a guy that's a freak of nature like Deuce, he's probably expecting that coming in.
Well, no, he is. And I do think that there's some conversation. Like, some people are painting it that he's, like, afraid of competing with CJ Carr. I don't fully buy that, guys.
No.
I just don't. I don't. Is there a clearer path at Auburn? For sure. There's a clearer path at Auburn. For sure there is.
And he probably can't trust what they're going to decide with CJ when it comes to that time. Because look what they're doing to CJ now.
I think that this is going to speak volumes to like 2026 and 2027. Obviously, Notre Dame already has Grubbs in 26, but like 2027, if Notre Dame doesn't go to the portal other than maybe a depth piece, but they say like it's the Minchie Mania or it's CJ Carr show, like whatever they end up doing next season, then I think people start going like, okay, redshirt freshmen starting at Notre Dame. Like, there's opportunities to play early if I'm good enough, ultimately, right? Like, that's why I don't dislike Steve Angeli as a player overall. I just wish I would see some more Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr on the field on Saturdays. You know what I mean? Because, like, for that to change, we got to start seeing some of those young guns play, even if it's just in the backup roles, because ultimately it's the NIL era. It's the transfer portal era. Guys want to play. Like, there's no doubt about that, right? So, yeah, they need to be able to show that they can develop their homegrown talent and they can get them on the field in a reasonable amount of time, because nobody wants to sit on the bench for 3+ years. Like, nobody wants to do that, obviously.
Oh, we gave it to you. We talked about the decommitment. We talked about moving forward. And since you're here, Double R, we're going to get ready to close this out with the next 4 games. Stanford at home game, which is, neutral site down in Atlanta, Georgia Tech. Then Navy, who both academies are playing really good this year. Both teams are really good.
Last year too, sure.
Absolutely. And then they topped the 4th game is home against Florida State. Now, the funny thing is, I probably would have said, okay, coming to the season, Stanford and Florida State would probably be the tougher 2 games. And now I'm like, I think Navy and Georgia Tech are probably going to be the tougher 2 games out of the 4. So let's talk about the next 4 games as they go into what they call the next third of the schedule. What do you need to see moving forward? And yeah, I mean, the next 4 games, we expect them to win all 4. But is it good enough to just win ugly in the next 4?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, and then I'll get off after this, guys, because I know you guys have a lot to dig into here. But, like, for me, like, the next block, because I'm actually writing an article about this, Sean. So it's actually kind of funny that you're asking me about this, right? Because I'm talking about this, like, next block of games. This bye week was so important for Notre Dame in a couple different instances. One, get healthy as you can be, right? Like, there's some season-ending injuries that it won't matter, but, like, let's get Joshua Burnham back. Let's get Billy Shrouth almost back if you can. Let's start getting some of these. I mean, Christian Gray's banged up, obviously, this past game. Benjamin Morrison's been banged up. Like, get everybody healthy first and foremost. After that, you got to find some answers at a couple different spots. Like, I need to see answers at a couple different positions. One of them is, you know who was a dynamite player for Notre Dame last few weeks, and unfortunately I'm not feeling great about his rest of the season, is Boubacar Traore was a dude, brother. Like, he was an absolute dude for Notre Dame those last few weeks. And Sean, we've talked about this. Notre Dame needs more of what that looks like, right? Like Boubacar looks like. They have a lot of good defensive ends, but they don't have guys that can win outside track with explosiveness and bend like that.
Boubacar was an underrated pickup, though. Also,
he was. It
wasn't like he was the premier Nolan Smith or Keelan Keeley or that sort of thing. He was, or even Dylan Stewart. You know, he was he kind of flew under the radar coming into the class, and then he took a year to develop. And so I would say the development on other position groups have been more apparent than what we would think is a slam dunk from the quarterback position.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. And to your point, because if people don't remember, like, Boubacar was a Massachusetts kid, same high school as Gerby Lambert. So he plays in a bed that gets underrated, obviously for obvious reasons. And he also was a Boston College commit at first, right? And like, when you flip someone from Boston College, it isn't like a sexy addition, right? You're like, oh, that kid plays at Boston College. Then he missed his senior year. Then he also like made this like weird weight transition where he's like 250 something pounds in high school and he's down in like the 230s as a freshman. You're like, oh, okay, that's a little bit different. So yeah, he was a guy that needed development, but like now that he's gone, who's going to take those reps? Like, are you just going to say like, Kingston, we're going to play you on the edge a little bit and let you get some of those pass rush reps? Are you doing with Jalen Sneed? Is Logan Thomas going to get an influx of opportunities? Like, one thing that I'm interested to see, I don't know if you guys have talked about this at all, but with Joshua Burnham hopefully coming back possibly this week against Stanford or next week against Stanford, I'm interested to see if now Bryce Young gets more reps where I can move like Joshua Burnham to Viper sometimes, right? Like, I can move RJ Oben to Viper sometimes. Like, does that give you a little bit of position flexibility? So like, you need to fill in the gaps of like the losses you've had. You need to figure out the offensive line and see what that looks like. You need to figure out some of the position groups that you missed. And ultimately, I have come to terms with what this offense is going to be. They're going to be a run-centric team that is just going to work the clock a lot, and they're going to be very methodical and blah, blah, blah. It's super boring, but it is what it is at this point. Can they get any extra wrinkles in the passing game that take you off guard? I'm not talking about Riley Leonard 5-7-step drop and running these crazy, route concepts that take a ton of time to develop. But like, can I get a tight end leak occasionally, right? Can I get a tight end delay? Can I get anything? Can I up the screen game? I mean, we just saw Jeremiah Love go for a screen on like his first opportunity all season, right out of the halfback position. Like, can we get that a part of our game? So I just want to see a push for offensive identity, at least taking a step in the right direction to make it more balanced as possible. And then you just got to fill in with what some of the injuries are, man, because it's unsettling, some of these injuries.
Yeah, that's our boy, Double R. Tell everybody where they can find you and follow you, Double R, A to Z Sports.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, man. I really do. I was hounding Sean in the chat and text message. I'm like, bro, let me come talk about this, man. So I
wasn't new. When I finally saw it, I was like, oh, man. Send him the link.
Yeah, now, Rise and Draft on Twitter, like Shake and Bake, Rise and Draft. If you guys want, obviously, Notre Dame content, A to Z Sports. But if you want general college football or NFL draft, I'll also be over there. And appreciate you guys as always, man. Really do.
Yeah, what do you think about this stuff? Jalen Milroe is now the number 1 overall pick. I'm like, man.
It's possible, dude. It's possible.
That's crazy.
Can I go on a quick tangent real quick before I leave?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Okay. So I wrote an article this morning because there was a mock draft that Yahoo Sports put out yesterday where Garrett Nussmeier went top 10 in the NFL draft in 2025, okay, from LSU. And, Sean, guess who wasn't in the first round? Was not in the first round. And you have Garrett Nussmeier going top 10. I'm like, guys, does anybody think that an NFL scout is going to look at Garrett Nussmeier and Jalen Milroe standing side by side, watch them throw the football, watch them move, watch them run around, and then look at the production and be like, I want that white kid from Louisiana? Like, absolutely not. They're not going to do that. So, yeah, man, Milroe has taken a massive step forward. Kalen DeBoer, because like last year for me, he was a dynamite athlete who had high upside as a passer, but he wasn't refined at all as a passer. Like, it was just deep ball, deep ball, deep ball, and you saw the howitzer that he has. But like this year, Kalen DeBoer, shout out to him, man. I'm seeing anticipatory throws on film. I'm seeing him have more control of the offense. Like, Jalen Milroe has been awesome this year.
Double R, A to Z Sports. Go follow him right now. Check out all of his content. We appreciate you, Double R.
Absolutely, fellas. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. So, Left, man, look, let me tell you something. It is amazing to me that as we move forward, we said it on Monday's show. The changes that need to be made, make them. The competitions that need to take place, let them take place. Evaluate your team, be honest about where you stand at all positions. And then from that point on, make the necessary moves to get the best players in the best position. And let's go win these next 4 games. If they get through these next 4 games, Notre Dame, more than likely, will go into that USC game with a chance to be in the playoffs. And in that stead, everything will be all good. All the talk about Northern Illinois, all the talk about Riley Leonard, all the talk about the team, Marcus Freeman, means nothing. If they get to USC with 1 loss, everything is right there before them. It's plain and simple, Left. Plain and simple. It's easy. We have a super chat, a couple of them we'll get to. Nita Beta, what's up, girl? Because all of the fan base loses their minds when we lose 1 game. Hey, man, that's part of being a fan. I was like that with the Bulls. No, let me tell you. I'm talking about when the Bulls were in their heyday, bro. When they lost, they would lose like 15 to 20 games a year left. That's it.
It's not a lot.
I took the losses worse than the wins. I would overreact. That's just being a fan, man. Look, I was born and raised in Indiana. I live in the South now. Where exactly, Nita Beta? I spend no more than 3 days in Indiana when I come home. The kids are not coming north. Hey, it's a tough transition. That's all we're trying to say. It's a tough transition, man. It really is. This right here, Fred, we got to be better. We appreciate you. How would Ohio State be with 3 starting old linemen? I'm Fred. I can't let you do that. Because when we had the linemen against Texas A&M and Northern Illinois, the offense stank. So nothing has changed. When we had the offensive linemen against Northern Illinois, Texas A&M, the offense still stank. It was bad. Nothing has changed. So we can't. I'm not letting you get away with that excuse. I can't. You got to be honest. You have to be honest. Nothing has changed offensively before the injuries to the offensive line or after the injuries. Nothing has changed. The offense is what it is. All right. So Stanford shouldn't be a problem at home, right? That's another revenge game for Marcus Freeman. Georgia Tech on the road worries me a little bit. Just a little bit. Because they do have playmakers.
I mean, all these games, because of how we go out there and...
Yeah, you're worried just because of us.
Yeah, like, I feel confident that we'll win most games. At the same time, it's like a psychological experiment because then it's like, damn, we should win and have high confidence of winning by a good margin. But looking at our track record, you're like, man, could this be another showing of NIU? It could just as easily be another version of that. And at the same time, an extreme version of us doing what is expected of us going into this season. So it's the you were afraid we wasn't going to do Purdue bad.
I was worried about Purdue, but I did say Purdue was the perfect opponent coming off Northern Illinois because of the coaches. And you see Graham Harrell got fired. What did I tell you? I said if Graham Harrell will revert from being who he is and trying to pass the ball and play slow and run the ball and take advantage of Notre Dame with motion and the same thing that Northern Illinois did, the same thing Louisville did to take advantage of Notre Dame's defense, Purdue can score. If Purdue comes out offensively and defensively doing what they like to do, Purdue likes to pressure and man-to-man. It's like, dude, you can't – if you do that, and you give Notre Dame opportunities and you don't have the dogs, you're probably going to be the perfect opponent for Notre Dame to get right. And Notre Dame got right against Purdue. But I was still nervous. I didn't expect 66. I was hoping we would get in the 30s. But It is what it is. And then to go back to the point that Mr. Lebowski made. All right, if it's problems on the offensive line, it's your job to coach it and correct it. That's it. Coach it and correct it because it's affecting your offense and it's affecting your quarterback. So the next 4 games are going to tell us a lot. If they get through these next 4 games, I feel comfortable in saying Notre Dame will be in the playoffs. I do. But they're going to have to show it the next 4 games. And I'm more worried about Navy and Georgia Tech than anything. Why? 2 teams that run the ball and shorten the game. That's why. Not because of talent. They're not more talented than Notre Dame. They're not better than Notre Dame. But their coaches can coach. And they shorten the game because they run the ball and possess the ball. Right? Literally. I think the time of possession was like crazily in favor of Louisville. It was crazy. So if Notre Dame cleans things up, run the ball, and play to your defense, they shouldn't have a problem. They really shouldn't have a problem. But yes, New Life, I agree with you. Navy and Army, the way they play and how good they're playing right now, both of those games scare me because you know they're going to slow the game down, shorten it, take possessions away from Notre Dame, and they're going to – that's all they do is motion. That's all they're about. Motion, trickery, as Howard Cross said. If he felt like Northern Illinois tricked them, then guess what Army and Navy are going to do? They're going to try to trick you, right? You know, I'm being petty. Anything before we get out of here, man?
Gotta be better.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, Left is feeling a certain way about the Deuce Knight thing. I'm not.
Well, it's more for the sense of, you know, like I spoke about how Ohio State win last year could have changed the perception. Deuce Knight landing that commitment.
Left, Notre Dame's offense averaging 35, 40 points a game could have changed the perspective. But it is what it is. We said before the season started, the only impact you have with Deuce Knight right now is this offense coming out, being on fire. So it didn't happen. It is what it is. I just don't want them to mess up the 2 we got. Forget that.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the 2 we have. I'm worried about Kenny and CJ.
But what have we shown them? You know,
please don't put them in the same trick bag you've been putting the other quarterbacks in. Please. That's all we're asking. Don't mess them up. Don't treat them right. Make it fair. Just be fair. Name somebody in the future, build around them, and keep the other one as the backup. Like, yo, be ready. But going to the portal, Left.
I think if we do, it should be for a Jack Cone role, a nice compliment that can do some good things. And man, you know, I think it's just
Thanks for the super chat, Ed 3.
We just gotta be more strategic when it comes to the quarterback position. You know, I think that's.
And Fred, it's all good. I said Lebowski. I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. I wanted to bring you on and say Fred Laskowski. I don't feel good mispronouncing someone's name.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I get you. That's
I can't do that. So I have to show Fred some love on the way out. Hey guys, we appreciate you. I got to go take moms to a lunch date. You know what I mean? Mom she's ringing the doorbell at 1:00. That's like 6 minutes. So I got to take my mom on a lunch date. We'll get up with you guys later. And we'll have it's no prediction show, but we'll be with you guys tomorrow right here. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Left, stay up tonight, man. Watch that series final episode because I think it's gonna be trash, but we'll see what happens.
Right.
Have a great day and make sure you spend it different.